I can't wait to go take 3 brand new trucks that I've probably barely even driven and beat Matt with the 3 trucks that he's already had built that he's working on before the event. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Road to Scale Nationals video series. This is where I'll be preparing the 3 trucks that I'll be taking to Scale Nationals 2020. That's going to be happening in the Las Vegas area. And if you're looking for any more information on the event, I'll link to it in the description below. But on the last video, which was kind of the intro to this series, I went over just a little bit of my plans and kind of just an overall view of what SORRCA is, which is the rule set that Scale Nationals uses. If you have any questions on that, refer back to that first video and see if I've got all the questions answered for you there. If not, absolutely drop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to do my best to answer. In that first video, I did show you guys the beginning of my Class 1 truck, which is a Vanquish VS410 base with an RC 4-wheel drive 4Runner body on it. Since I showed you that video, there hasn't been any additional progress. There actually hasn't been any progress on any of these trucks since I showed you that last video either. Now, as of today, there is 65 days left until Scale Nationals. So I've got to get cranking, but I've been super busy on some new release stuff. So I haven't got a chance to work on these trucks, but I think I'm finally going to be able to get some serious time in on these. And what I wanted to do is show you guys what the base of my Class 2 will be. Now, here in front of you, you'll see a truck that I've previously had, but never really covered on the channel. Now, this was a truck that had a Chevy C10 cab on it, and then I had built this rear truggy bed for it. This was built as my test bed truck for the Vanquish VFD transmission. I believe I built this truck in December of 2018 when I was testing the VFD transmission, and I wanted to do a little bit of tube work on the back. The nice thing about what I've got here is that this is basically a completely operating platform, but I am going to be redoing most of it still. The rear truggy cage, I'm actually going to scrap. This is one that I built. I hadn't been fabricating anything tube work for quite a while before it, so this was kind of my first jump back into it. Not something I'm super proud of. It looked good enough, but the work itself isn't something I'm all that proud of. So this is something that I'm just going to go ahead and scrap. And what I'll do is I'm going to build a new rear tube cage for this body here. And this body is the MST JP1 body. It's just a good looking, Jeep Brute style body. And I think that it'll be a really good fit for a Class 2 truck. It's got a nice natural pinch to the front like a Jeep does. So that's going to be a nice advantage as far as that goes. So this is going to be the body I'm going to fit to this chassis, and then I'll work out new tube work around that body specifically. What I think I'll do is I'll cut out this entire bed on the Lexan body, and then I'll build a new tube structure in the rear similar to this one that will then, fit back there, and I'll kind of build myself a drop bed and things like that. I'll support the rear of the body the best I can, and just in general, I think that will give me a clean look with some nice tube work to really accent it, make it look cool and be something that I, am happy to own and drive. I'll make sure that I've got some sort of interior that works with this and this chassis as well. During the time of testing, I had built some steel rock sliders. These, however, are going to be too wide for that body, so I'll get rid of those as well. I think that my front bumper is actually going to work, so, one thing off the checklist. For electronics, this truck is already got a complete set of electronics in it. At this point, at least, I'm just going to kind of run with what I have here. It might not be the ideal setup for slow technical crawling, because while it is a nice Tekin RX4 speed control, it's a Pro 4 3300 kV motor. The Pro 4s don't have quite the low end resolution that the Rock 412 does. It's still a good motor though, and I think that I'll be able to run with it unless I find the time and feel like I need to switch things up. But I've put a lot of hours on this truck at this point already, so I'm pretty comfortable with it. So that's why, I'm not in like a big hurry to swap that out. So for now anyway, it's going to work. Servo, I've got a Futaba S9177 SV, a great servo, awesome bang for the buck, super powerful, super strong gears. And I'm controlling all of that with my Futaba 4PM radio and the 2106 GF receiver. It's a cheap air receiver, saves you a good amount of money every time you have to buy a new receiver if you're a Futaba person. So note that, 2106 GF. You will see that I have a fan over here on the side that was kind of pointed at the motor. When we were testing this VFD transmission, we were running large packs and just forward, reverse on pavement over and over and over. And it would get things a little, a little spicy. So I had some airflow on it. I'm not going to need that anymore. I'll get that out of there. In general, this whole thing needs a lot of cleanup. The rails that are on this truck are actually raw VS410 rails from early in our prototyping days, but it's kind of cool to have those rails in raw. So those will probably stay as well. Some things that I will do is that this chassis does have the aluminum servo mount braces and rear brace. I'll probably swap those all out to the plastic braces that come in the VS410 Pro. I think that they, even though they're plastic instead of aluminum, I feel like they're a better setup. They fill the chassis more. Just overall, I like the style and the features that they have. So I'll probably go ahead and swap that out. I've got a prototype battery plate in this thing, which I probably am not going to run. I'll probably just run the small battery packs on the side like I normally do. So I don't think I'll need a cross-mounted battery plate at all anyway. So while I have a running rig here, almost all of it's gonna have to get disassembled and reassembled using a lot of new parts. And while it may then be just easier to start from scratch and go new, sometimes it is nice to just have a starting point, start throwing parts at it, doing what you can while you can, and it just keeps you moving in the right direction. Now, there are some other major changes that I've been thinking about making, and that is why I actually have my VS410 Pro here on the bench right now. Now, if you did catch it several months ago, I had my VS410 Pro in here and I installed this portal axle in the rear of this vehicle. Rear only, no portal in the front, standard front, portal rear. And I went through that in that video as to why I did that. And that was because you can steer the front around the obstacles and place the tires where you want, but oftentimes the rear just has to follow. So for that reason, portal rear makes a little bit of sense. And I cited in that one that I've seen this used in the full-size world and had video examples and, blah, blah, blah. But the reason that I take you down that path and have this vehicle here specifically on the bench is because I'm thinking I may steal this rear axle from my VS410 Pro and put it in this vehicle. The reason is because this is a raw rear portal housing and the axles that I've got on this vehicle are also raw. I do have the Vanquish D44 style housings on this truck. When I actually built this truck, we didn't even have the F9s yet, so the D44s were the only option for the front offset. But I do like the D44s. They're actually the same axle that I've got on the 4Runner, so both trucks would have a matching style, at least front axle. If you want all of the details about how I swapped this axle into this vehicle and all of the gearing calculations that went along with that, I'll link that video above. You can check that out and go through all of the math and, the discussions that I went through for this. Now, I know I say I may do that and I might do this, and honestly, in the end, I just need to start making some decisions and getting things done because we're counting the days down. 65 days now is the first time I've touched any vehicle since I returned from the holiday breaks. I'm gonna start disassembling, just kind of inspecting everything. I treated this vehicle poorly while testing it. So I think I owe this thing a breakdown, check all the gears, check everything, make sure everything's good. Maybe throw a set of shafts in it just to check the boxes and give myself a little bit of reassurance that everything's in good shape. And the other thing that I'm gonna do is, while I've got everything apart, I'll replace all of the bearings in it. But I do have a couple of sets here of these new fast eddy bearings, stainless steel bearings. These are made for this type of vehicle. If you're gonna throw it in mud or water, anything like that, not gonna corrode. I actually grabbed a few sets of these because I plan to throw them in my VS410 Pro. I'll put them in this one, and just anything else while I'm going through it, I'm gonna switch to those stainless steel bearings. I think anything that I'm tearing apart, I'm gonna try and take the time and put in the stainless bearings rather than the standard. It's a simple little upgrade, and I think that in the end, hopefully it proves to have a benefit there. He has the kits for the SCX-10-2s, and basically that will work in this vehicle. The transmission bearings will be the difference there. The VFD runs 13 5x11 bearings, so you do need more 5x11s than this kit will actually have. But he also has a Vanquish VFD transmission bearing set in the stainless steel. So I picked up one of those, and I think that with the extras that are in here, plus these, I'll probably be able to get both of these trucks done at least with 2 SCX-10-2 kits and 1 of those transmission kits. So after going through and talking this all out, I think my plan for tonight is start tearing this thing down a little bit, get the rear cage off, start pulling the things that I want to get swapped over to the plastics, pull everything apart, start doing a bearing swap, And I think maybe while I'm at it, I'm just gonna go ahead and swap that rear axle from my VS410 Pro into this. I'm gonna put a portal back in this, but I wanna put a matching clear anodized version in the rear. While I do like raw, what I don't like is having the clear anodized front axle and a raw rear axle. This one, at least I'll have raw front axle, raw rear axle. I think it's a better fit. So let's fire up the power driver and get to work. All right, so here's my setup while I'm wrenching here at the desk and while I'm filming in general. There's my camera that I normally film with. That's my audio recorder, which is recording to that microphone. We got the truck here, tools, hand tools. I'm using my Vanquish tools. Power driver, I use this DeWalt 8-volt Gyro Max, which is actually pretty rad. You pull the trigger, and then when you rotate, you know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it's actually really nice. And it's got a great clutch on it. You can really set it where you want it. Got the light, 1/4-inch drive. For my 1/4-inch drive bits, I've actually got this set from Traxxas. And I have to say, this is one of the nicest 1/4-inch drive tool sets I've really just ever used. So I'll take this one on the trail with me because it does have a handle that's included. And they also sell like different sized handles and all that kind of stuff. But it's got 1.5, 2 millimeter ball end, which is nice. 2.5 ball end, so on and so forth. Then all of your nut drivers. The 8 millimeter nut driver that's included with this does not fit into Vanquish SLW hexes or SLW hubs though, so not a whole lot of use. For that, definitely still have to go to my Vanquish 8 millimeter driver. The Traxxas tool set and the DeWalt, super handy combo. We got, these are those faceted bearing sets with the yellow seals, so you know which ones are stainless. Of course, our trusty Crawler Innovation cell blocks. I've got my Surface Pro going with a movie, some lemon water, because I'm fancy like that. Close up of that front bumper, super minimal, super just low profile. Not much to it. A couple pieces of 3/16 solid rod, and it's held up great. It's definitely taken a lot of abuse. One thing that I may do is add like a simple stinger on the top of it, just real small to get the extra scale points, but very, very minimal from what I'll add. But other than that, not having to touch that thing will help save me a little bit of time. Hey, you can see the rusted chassis there. Like I said, this was always raw. It never had a coating on it, never had it stripped. It was just an early prototype. But anyway, I'm taking all of the hardware out of this whole thing so I can get it all pulled apart so I can swap in the plastic chassis braces front and rear. That'll also give me a fuel cell in the back for scale points. And again, I just like the solid style of the, of these plastic chassis braces. I think they're just a better design there. Once I got the whole truck torn apart to put in the new plastic rail, I decided to actually take the frame rail and just hit it with a flexible sanding block. So I use these kind of foam sanding blocks. They're good for just about everything. This is a pretty fine grit. But anyway, just hit it with that, not trying to get it perfect, but obviously a much better, or an improvement from the rusted patinaed version, and it'll get back to that anyway, but at least it's a little bit cleaner. Then I just hit a shop rag with some WD-40, gave it a little wipe down. That'll help it preserve itself for a little while longer. So I had forgot that the earlier frame rails, the prototype frame rails, they didn't have a hole right here. So what I had to do was take the new plastic brace, put it inside the chassis, mark it, and then drill my new hole so that I could use this new mounting point on these braces. So little setback that I forgot I needed to do, but I got that drilled on both frame rails now. So I get the cross braces bolted into these now. I keep a piece of scrap wood around here. This is actually like a crazy, like some sort of exotic dense wood that a friend of mine, Tony, gave to me, and it works fantastic for a drill block. But then I can drill here on the bench without having to worry about anything. And then I just have a set of Makita 1/4-inch drive drill bits here, and then I can use my Ryobi screw gun to actually drill. And of course I have regular drills as well, but the 1/4-inch drive stuff is super handy. It's also nice to have these style drill bits in case you're just doing something in like Lexan. I can use my little DeWalt driver instead. Have the transmission disassembled. This transmission does have the lightweight machined motor plate in it. Other than that, it's pretty much a stock VFD transmission. I'm going to replace the 13 5x11s from the old ones in there to those new stainless steel bearings. Other than that, all of my gears looked good. Nothing there that I need to do other than re-grease and reassemble. All right, so I pulled the portal axle out of my VS410 Pro, and what we have here is the flipped pumpkin, so it's a low pinion now, and then built these upper link mounts out of the F9 servo on axle mount. Just cut the top of it off and just using those two ears because the old link mounts were on the top side, which is now the bottom side. So obviously that doesn't work. But anyway, going to pull out the rear axle that I had in here and swap this one in. The other thing that I am going to do is I need to swap in the lower links that I had on the VS410 Pro, because with the pinion angle that you would normally have on a standard axle, what that does is that takes the portal boxes and rotates them in, which slightly shortens your wheelbase. So I'm running lower link that's a few millimeters longer to rotate that back, bring them more to vertical. That makes my pinion angle flat, but I'm not worried about that part of it. This drive shaft, you can see, has taken a beating, but the benefit of the clearance of the portal axle and all that, I think, has been well worth it. It's hard to tell, but this axle has got a ton of abuse. I've rock raced with it. It's done a ton of miles of trails, and overall just been a really fun setup. Now, I actually just rebuilt this not too long ago, so I'm not going to go through and clean this one up. Plus, I don't have all of the right stainless steel bearings to replace all the bearings in this one with those. So for now, I'm gonna leave this one as is. All right, body's mounted, axle's under it. You can see the portal there. Body's mounted. I've got it pushed as far back as possible just to make sure that it gives me the best clearance here on the front, so I won't have to trim as much here. I'll be able to trim off most of this fender flare actually, since this is a class 2. So that'll make that. The clearance anyway, really nice. Back here, I'll do a little bit of trimming here in the front. Won't have to do much in the back. That way I'll be able to maintain the full drop down of this rear body. It comes out a little bit, so it doesn't have perfect departure, but we'll work with that. We'll cut off the bumper portion of this, and I mean, it'll probably end up getting trimmed up a little bit as well for when I build the rear bumper and the cage work. Not sure. Maybe I'll cut the entire tailgate out of it and kind of open up the bed. That might actually look pretty good. Maybe that will be my plan at this point anyway. So we'll just see how much time we really have to get this done. This, like I said, this whole section will come out. I'll build a rack that comes back here, simple down tubes, a little bit of cage work. I'll integrate the shock mounts into the cage work, and we'll be pretty good. Overall, I think this is gonna be a slick little build. Of Of course, we still have to work out the whole interior, all that, but it's gonna be fun. This body does come with a hard molded plastic front grille. We'll get all that in. We'll get the sides of the body trimmed up. Looks like it's gonna come up a little bit. We'll trim that up because then we'll have to get the new rock sliders built for this. I'm super excited for how this thing looks. I think that's gonna look great. So that's going to be our jump off into class 2. I'm actually already really excited about this build. I think this body is a fantastic body. One of my favorites on the market. The finish on it is great. The quality just feels really good. It's got the nice hard molded plastic grille. And I think overall it's just gonna be a great looking truck. So already super excited about this one. I have a lot to do, just like the rest of them. Being a Lexan truck, I think that's going to save me some serious time. But with the tube work that I want to get done, having to get rock sliders, rear bumper, the rear tube work, and interior done, I think this one's going to be the easiest to actually accomplish. And this truck is going to drive like my other trucks that I've put in a ton of miles on. So I feel like I'm going to be able to, this one's just going to feel like second nature to me. And I think that's the best thing. Now that I swapped the portal axle into this truck is going to have about 30% overdrive. So, and I went through that in the portal rear install. So if you're curious on how that works, check that video out. But like I said, about a 30% overdrive, which for a comp situation is good. I think that'll actually work well. So that's gonna wrap up this video. Class 3 is still a complete mystery. One of those things we're just gonna have to make it happen as we get closer. I do have a master plan though, and that is to take my current toolbox that's in here, move it to the garage, bring my fab table and welder from the shop here. That way I can actually spend more time getting the tube work and things like that done and ready, and buy myself a new toolbox for in here. So that's my plan. We'll see how that works out, and we'll see how much more time that just eats up rather than just working where I have everything set up. But like I said in the Scale Nationals event page, it wouldn't be an interesting YouTube series if I wasn't pushing everything to the wire to try and get all this stuff done. I know that I'm going to be finishing these trucks the day before I leave. So any suggestions you guys have for these trucks out there, because we still have some time, lots of things left to come. Thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully I get to see some of you guys at Vegas. Looking forward to this event. Really looking forward to the rest of these build series. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoy these videos. Subscribe if you're not already. Hit the notification bell so you see the videos as soon as they get uploaded. Much more to come on the road to Scale Nationals. See you guys on the next one.